Hey guys, welcome back. Andrew here with Ambient Endeavors, and I don't know what the weather's been like in your neck of the woods, but here in Minnesota, we're coming off of like a week solid of brutal cold. I mean, we're talking like sub-zero Fahrenheit weather in the daytime, just pretty miserable. And so it has me pining for and excited for the NAMM show, which is coming up next week. I get to go out to Southern California. It's always a fun time to reconnect with friends in the industry and get to meet and talk to brands and folks out there that I get to work with. And it also has me remembering some conversations last year that I had with the folks at Walrus Audio. Some of the guys there were kind of teasing, talking about new products that they were going to release 2023, 2024. So it kind of comes full circle a little bit as we're approaching NAMM here, almost a year removed. I get to announce or help announce the Walrus Meraki. There's so much I could say about this pedal, and we'll get into a little bit in a second here, but I have kind of known about this for months. Sometimes it's kind of hard to keep secrets here in the industry, but I got to play a beta version of this in the summertime, but got super excited the more I was hearing about it and the more opportunities I got to hear and play it. And it is just a fantastic analog delay pedal, one of my favorites in terms of that warm, lush, true analog bucket brigade delay sounds. And I think that they really did a fantastic job with this pedal to add some cool features that sort of modern players might be drawn to, some folks in the ambient world too that can really appreciate, and also just to deliver something that's as robust and as powerful. It's pretty impressive. So we'll talk about Meraki. We'll kind of get into some of the reasons why making a stereo, true analog, true stereo delay is pretty impressive. Then we'll run down the controls and get you some sound samples at the end. I just got done shooting the sound sample section. It ended up being a little more of like a video manual, so I won't go into a ton of the details about how you do certain things on the pedal. We'll talk about the features though, and just go over kind of the way that they designed this pedal and how you can use it as a true stereo analog delay pedal. So to start with, Meraki. It's a pretty substantial box here, although everything is fairly tidy, and I really do like the interface of the face of the pedal. It ends up working pretty well, pretty smoothly once you get into it. But there's EIGHT MN3005 bucket brigade chips in here. The X5 chips, that might not mean anything to some of you, but if you think about a pedal like a vintage DM2, kind of one of the forefathers, one of the archetypes of analog delay, I believe that has one single MN3005 chip in it. Maxes out at about 300 milliseconds, and so you get a nice warm kind of slap back or really short repeat, but you don't really have that possibility to do the longer more ambient or even more kind of dynamic rhythmic delay sounds with a pedal like that. So they've packed 8 of those chips into this pedal to do all that they need to do and offer up to 1200 milliseconds of delay time for each side, and to do that in true stereo. So you essentially have 2 independent analog delays in this box that you can tweak and refine in cool ways that we'll get into. So it's pretty impressive. It's a pretty ambitious undertaking that Walrus has done with this, and I think that they executed it really well. And I think as folks will probably begin to do after the release here, sort of balk at the price tag of this pedal. If you are in the market for an analog delay and you simply want to get into one that sounds good and is affordable, this probably isn't the pedal you want. If you're someone who's looking for that kind of idealized, elevated, stereo, dynamic analog delay pedal and sound, this is definitely one to consider. And I think as you scan the marketplace of this type of effect, you'll find very, very few options out there, and many of those options are going to be very comparable in price to this one. So just something to note. Again, this is for sure not for everyone, but I do think it's a really impressive and great sounding stereo analog delay. So let's get into the control set here and then let you guys hear some of this pedal. So to start with, you've got feedback controls for left and right up top here, and a global mix control. At about 2 o'clock is where you have a 50-50 mix, and then if you dial it all the way up, you can get that full wet. Down below you have a mod control, which controls the depth of the modulation. You have a time control, which also allows you to adjust the time of the delay repeats, and you have a tone control, which is a tilt style EQ, cutting bass and adding brightness if you go clockwise, and then doing the inverse there, boosting bass, cutting treble as you go counterclockwise. So the toggles are kind of where you get into the interesting nuances and dynamic elements of this stereo delay. We're going to go through a number of the nuances and the ways that you set and control different things in the sound samples, so keep an eye out there. I'll annotate that throughout the video, but we'll run down kind of what the overview of each of these is. So to start with, you have unique tap subdivision toggles for each left and right here. You can choose between a quarter note, dotted eighth note, or regular eighth note there. On this left toggle, you also have the control of the mod waveform. You can choose between sine, square, or random waveform for your modulation. Next up, we have the feedback path toggle, which lets you select which of the stereo feedback paths you want to experience. So you can do either parallel, ping pong, or a series style stereo delay. Next up, we have mod and time toggle, which allows you to either sync those 2 attributes of the delays so that both left and right are the same, or toggle to either the left or the right, and then control your modulation settings and also your delay time settings. So this is a really dynamic control that we'll get into in the sound samples that lets you kind of create your own adventure in terms of the stereo delay dynamic and experience. Then on the right here again, there's the right-sided delay time subdivision toggle with the sub-function here of a mod phase control. So this sets the modulation phase from either in phase to 180 degrees out of phase, and it basically enhances the kind of width and the dynamics of the stereo modulation. So at in phase, you have a pretty traditional, pretty classic modulation experience. As you go out of phase, you get this cool kind of rise and fall between the left and right channels, which I think is really, really fun, especially as you hear that in stereo. So that is a brief overview of the pedal. Like I said, we'll get to a lot of the ways that you adjust different features and functions in the sound samples here, so we'll just kind of cruise forward to that. I would highly recommend, as I do for all videos, but I often forget to tell you, highly recommend using headphones or some really good stereo studio monitors to hear this demo, as you'll kind of get to hear the dimensions and the nuances of the sound a lot better than on a phone or something. So we're going to be switching over to the pedal board in a second here. I'll be playing my Heritage H535 semi-hollow into the pedal board. We've got a 1981 LVL and a Benson Germanium boost for just a little bit of texture going into the Meraki and stereo, out to UA Golden Reverb and the UA Ruby for the amp. Check it out.